everyone, and welcome back to another video. Today we're going to be learning how to identify trees. So I'm going to start this video out with a little quiz. If you think you know the species of tree beside me, comment below and we'll answer tomorrow. I'll give you a little hint. Here's its cone. So trees are actually huge plants with a single woody stem that we often refer to as a trunk. Every year that stem gets thicker and thicker, and that's why we can look at tree rings to see how old trees are. So the first thing you need to know when identifying trees is the difference between the two main categories. You have your deciduous trees and your evergreens. So deciduous trees are essentially giant flowering plants. The word deciduous actually comes from the Latin word meaning to fall off. So every fall, deciduous trees actually lose their leaves for the winter. So evergreen trees actually keep their leaves all year round. Evergreens usually have sharp, spiky leaves, either called scales or needles, depending on their shape. So the first tree that we're going to learn to identify are jack pines. Jack pines are coniferous evergreens, which means that they have cones. You can usually find them in sandy soils, so let's get closer to learn how to identify them better. There are a few defining characteristics of jack pine which make it really stand out. Firstly, you have the needles. Its needles are in clumps of 2 and they're kind of medium length. The next defining characteristic of jack pines are their cones. As you can see, their cones kind of have a curled shape and they're very tightly closed. This is because they're serotinous. What having a serotinous cone means is that its cone is actually closed with resin on the outside. The only way to open the cone is for the resin to melt, so it needs really hot temperatures, like a forest fire or a really warm sunny day, for it to actually open and release its seeds. You can see the really obvious difference between a closed jack pine cone and an open jack pine cone. So jack pine have actually adapted with forest fire disturbances, because their cones only open, again, under really intense heat, temperatures that are either 50 degrees Celsius or greater. So that is why, after you see a forest fire, they're usually the first trees to regenerate. The next tree we have is a trembling aspen. There is something very unique about trembling aspen trees, and it's not necessarily the way they look, but the way they sound. On breezy summer days, when all the leaves have finally completely emerged, you can hear a beautiful shaking or quaking noise, and that's from the way that the leaves are attached to the tree. So the stems on a trembling aspen leaf are actually 90 degrees to the leaf. So instead of being in line and flat with the leaf, the 90-degree angle causes the leaf to shake, and that's why you hear that awesome shaking sound in the summer. Trembling aspen trees from afar might look similar to birch trees because of the color of their bark. They are lighter, but the difference is their bark doesn't slough off. It actually gets very kind of jagged near the bottom. So that's another great indicator that you're looking at a trembling aspen versus a birch. Another really cool fact about trembling aspens is if you rub them, you'll actually kind of get a white powder on your hands. And this actually acts as the tree's natural sunscreen. This is our last tree. And remember when I mentioned that word coniferous earlier? Coniferous means a tree has a cone. And I'm about to show you Ontario's only native coniferous deciduous tree. So this tree right here is called a tamarack, or also known as an eastern larch tree. And its needles actually fall off in the fall and regrow in the spring, which is pretty neat. The tamarack is actually my favorite deciduous tree, and that's because of the really soft needles. As you can see, they grow out from these little wooden stems in clumps of 10 to 20 needles each. The cones of the tamarack are also quite small. They're not very long and mostly about 2 centimeters in length. So the next time you see a tree with needles that are beginning to look a little yellow in the fall, it's probably a tamarack. So today I hope you learned some tips and tricks on how to identify some of your local tree species. And if you want to continue learning, you can get a local tree identification book like Trees in Canada, which has a lot of great pictures inside of it. And happy learning!